Hi, as you know, I am Kaylin, and today we're going to be discussing the configuration of authorizing hours. So in our example today, we're going to use overtime authorization, which we're going to set up. But you can also then set up any other category that you have as well in terms of authorization. So let's say you've got some flexi time, so you don't necessarily pay overtime, but this employee even works some extra hours, which either goes to flexi column or to extra column, and you want to authorize those hours even into normal pay then, or it could be some other rate that he gets paid at for that work there. You can also set up any bonuses. Let's say you've got annual bonuses or something and hours that need to go towards that. You can authorize those as well if you need to. Like I said in this example today, we're going to use overtime authorization. So we're going to configure that, and then I'm going to show you how to actually authorize that overtime. So in my configuration module, what I have already done is under my time categories, I have gone and set up what they call a holding category, which will be where your hours will lie before it's actually been authorized. Now you can obviously put your description, whatever you would like that to be. In my case, I'm using my overtime, so I'm going to have a holding category for 1.5, and I'm also going to have a holding category for overtime 2 for double rate. There. So I've set up my time categories. What I've also done is in my shifts, in my daily shifts, I've gone and configured my shifts that anything after his normal time that he's worked, after 5, those hours, if he's worked longer than 15 minutes, will go into the holding category of 1.5. So that'll be then your overtime 2. And so you can go and configure your shifts according to whatever you want them to be there and which hours need to go in there. So I've configured that. I've set up my categories, and allocated them in my shift. Now what I need to do is actually go and enable overtime authorization on the system. Now this also gets done in your configuration module. You can go to your system features or your bells and whistles, and you can actually go and click on standard, and you'll see that you've got then your daily overtime authorization or then payroll overtime authorization. So depending on your setup, whether you would want this hours to be authorized on a daily basis, or then just at the end of your pay period, this guy's got 10 hours, 5 hours, or whatever, you want to authorize all those hours, then at pay period level, you can select which one you want to do. So I'm going to do a daily overtime authorization. So I've selected that feature that it is enabled. If I now go into my my categories again, my shift time categories, I need to now tell the system if it's the holding category of the hours is this, and obviously once it's been authorized, it needs to go to, this particular column. So what I want to do is I want the hours to be authorized into overtime 1.5. If I change on that, you will see that you've got a section here that says requires authorization. So this time category of OT 1.5 requires authorization. Obviously it's on a daily basis because that's what I've selected then. And then once you've ticked that, you'll see you can actually specify what the holding category is. In my case, it's going to be hold 1.5, or else you can obviously go and select whichever one that may be for you. So I've got holding 1.5, and I click on OK, and I've set up that one. The same thing with the overtime 2. We're going to click on change. We're going to select daily authorization, and we're going to specify the holding category for those hours there. Once you've actually set that up, then you can move to your configuration module, and you'll immediately see if you go into your daily hours. Let's just go here, and let's set our date back. I think I've got something for February here. Let's go and see. I think I've actually got some errors on this, guys, so I'm going to just fix those quickly. Let's take a look at these, so that we've got something to actually work with. So I've got an in clocking there. I'm going to remove all these in between clockings. If you remember correctly, this would be from our previous webinar that we had this. So we've got an in and we've got an out clocking. Here's an in clocking. I know that this is has also got an error, so I'm going to go and add one. And let's say this guy worked overtime on the 4th. So we're going to say, I know my shift ends at 5. So let's say this employee worked till 8 o'clock. Okay, and we can close that. Make sure we don't have any errors. Excellent. Let's go to daily hours and let's go and see what is actually going on here. Okay, so we've got then our hours here. Let's see what it's actually done. We've got he worked overtime here, 3 hours, and it is in our holding category. Okay, so we now need to authorize that overtime so that he can actually get paid then. Now usually what happens is when you've got those holding categories, you know, whatever that may be, or your, like we've got the flexi column here as well, if that's been set up to be authorized, then those hours obviously won't go into payroll then. Only once it's been authorized into the columns that, you know, the appropriate columns that you would pay, those would then get exported to payroll. So we need to authorize this then. We'll click on that day. At the bottom you will see there's an overtime button which will take you to the overtime authorization screen. You then need to go and add in the authorization. Let's just see here, we don't have our categories. Let's see what is going on. Let's go to daily and see if I've actually set everything up correctly. Overtime, let's change that. Got my holding category, that is correct. And the same thing with this one, hold 2. I'm pretty happy with that. And we've got our authorization here, says to me there. Okay, so everything seems to be okay. Let's move over here again. It might just be a case of needing to refresh things. So let's go and open up the user module again. Gonna move this over here and let's go and check again. Daily hours, and we said we had something on the 1st of Feb. There you go, it was a refresh issue. So you'll see now also that your holding categories appear in red, and the ones that would be authorized then appear in green. So immediately now we will see that we've got those hours in our hold category. If we go to overtime, we go and click on add, you will now see that those hours are there. So then you can decide whether you want to actually authorize 3 hours or whether you only want to authorize 2 hours. Then, you know, you as the wage clerk can actually put that in then, so you can specify what you want to authorize. Please make sure the date that you're adding this overtime authorization, that it is the correct date that you're adding that for then. Obviously you will see then the hours that the employee has worked, and these are obviously the hours that you would be authorizing there then. Also just always double check that you've got the correct employee, all those basic procedures there. You can just click on OK. Once you've actually added that, you close that, you will see that your overtime will be authorized into the appropriate column. Now if I had set up flexi for argument's sake, flexi hours, and this guy would have worked here, and let's say I authorize that to the normal time, it would then obviously transfer whatever I've authorized into the normal column. Likewise with the hold 2 category, it'll then send that over to the overtime 2 column. Okay, so I'm going to show you another way. I'm going to go and delete this authorization again. Another way that you can actually go and authorize overtime, let's say you're happy with authorizing the exact amount of hours that are there. So in other words, you want to authorize 3 hours. You can use a shortcut key, which is Control A. This will automatically authorize any hours that are in your holding category. It'll throw it over to your authorized column then. So that's just a little quick shortcut. It's nice and easy if you have to just go through a few and authorize that. You can also go and authorize overtime in bulk if you need to, so you can add your daily authorization. This works pretty much the same as the other screen, except here you don't see each employee and how much he's actually worked. So what happens here is you would then select your employees, you would choose your from and to date that you want to authorize your overtime for. So let's say you want to only authorize for the Monday, or you want to authorize any hours from the Monday to the Wednesday. And you would specify then what is the maximum amount of hours that you want to authorize. So let's say in this case you want to only authorize a maximum of 2 hours. Then anybody that's got 2 hours and less will be authorized. Those that have more will obviously only be authorized 2 hours as well, because that's the maximum amount that you're going to authorize. And then you can obviously put your reference in, click on add, and it will process that and add that to the system then. It's always also advisable that once you've done any bulk tasks or anything like that, just to do a bulk process, even if you've added any leave in or any clockings, made any changes, I always suggest do a bulk process before you do your payroll. It just makes sure that any changes that you have made in that period will be taken into account and that will be calculated there. So that's your overtime authorization. Pretty easy to set up. Just make sure that you have enabled then either daily or payroll basis then. Obviously, if you've selected payroll, you will not see this overtime button in the daily hours screen. You would then go to your payroll hours and you would have your overtime button there where you would actually authorize those hours there then. So it works exactly the same, except now you basically authorizing the full payroll hours there. And that's overtime authorization. Quite easy to set up, quite easy to actually authorize those hours. Depending on the amount of employees you have, it could be quite a bit of work if you need to authorize all those hours, but it does ensure that you're not paying any extra hours that you shouldn't be paying, which is always a good thing. So yes, I hope you have learned something and that you will join me next time. Goodbye.